If you've been playing video games for most of your life like I have, chances are you have a favorite. A game you can go back to after many years and still have fun with it. I have a long list of games like that, but one of the highest on that list is Dark Souls. I have played Dark Souls more times than I can count. It shaped me as a gamer, changed the way I look at games entirely. It even got me using the D-pad to navigate every menu in every game I played afterward. But what is it that has this game permanently burned into my mind? Is it nostalgia? Well, yes, obviously, but also because it's just so different from any other game I played before it. The brutal challenge, the incredible level design, the lack of hand-holding and exposition dumps, the stunning imagery. It's not that I love Dark Souls just because I played it years ago, but the game earned that love. Now let's see why. At the start, you name your character something like Schwangel and make him look exactly how you want. Ah! Then you're told the story of how the world came to be what it is. It was once a cold, dark, sleeping world inhabited by dragons. Then suddenly fire happened. Then Gwyn, Nito, and the Witch of Izalith found souls in the flame that granted them immense power that they used to slaughter the dragons. But now the fire is dying out, and the age of prosperity is over. Next thing you know, you're sitting in a cell looking like fried chicken, and a dead guy plops down in front of you with the key to your cell. That's the only time the game spoon-feeds you any of the lore, but we'll cover that later. Then we have the simplest, least obnoxious tutorial I have ever seen. There's messages on the ground telling you what the buttons do. This is how you attack. This is how you dodge. This is a giant ugly bastard. It treats you like an adult. It's quick, it doesn't annoy, and it throws you into the deep end with a cinder block tied around your neck. What, too much for you? I'm sorry, would you rather have a fluttery little pest slapping the controller out of your hands every 2 seconds to give you a long-winded explanation on how to open a door?
Hey, if you want to open the door, you gotta turn the knob. Hey, if you want to drink lemonade, you gotta hold the glass up to your mouth. Hey, if you want to put shoes on, you gotta put your feet in them. Hey, I see you're trying to get rid of me, but it's not gonna work. Hey!
With the demon blocking the way dead, you're carried off to the land of the ancient lords, Lordran, and you're dropped in with no clear direction and only vague hints from this guy to go on, and this is where the level design starts shining through. You poke around, seeing where you can and can't go. The ghosts down here are too strong right now, so maybe try somewhere else. These guys aren't too bad, so this must be the way to go. Fight your way through, gather souls and level up, and another boss appears, and oh look! A shortcut connecting this new area to the checkpoint you found earlier. The entire world is a network of winding, interconnected paths that lead back to places you've been to before. Areas you'll need to revisit, whether it be for shops, equipment upgrades, farming spots, having to cut through a place you've been to before to get to a new area, or just grinding for more levels. It needs to be this way, because you don't get the ability to warp between bonfires until much later in the game. Of course, in the later games you can warp right from the start, which is nice and all, but it eliminates the need for cool, unexpected shortcuts that take you from the lower section of Undeadburg straight back to Firelink Shrine, or the elevator in Undead Parish that takes you right back to Firelink Shrine, or the back door to Blighttown that takes you right back to Firelink Shrine. As for the gameplay, it's incredibly simple. It mostly boils down to timed dodging and attacking with controls that make perfect sense. The right and left bumpers and triggers let you use the weapons equipped in the respective hand. Bumper for light attacks, trigger for heavy, and if you've got a shield, bumper blocks and trigger parries, giving you an opening for a critical hit, or you can just circle around back and shove your sword up an armored boar's. Then there's the kick. This is where problems start showing up. When you want to kick, you have to move the left stick forward and hit the right bumper at the same time. It's great for pushing enemies back and breaking their guard, but the weird input has caused a lot more accidental, very costly kicks than intentional ones. One more thing I've noticed is most of the time I hold the shield up just in case I'm late with a dodge, and I hit the dodge button a fraction of a second too late. I block the hit, and then, oh, now you dodge. This has costed me stamina and opportunities to attack simply because the game stores the dodge input to be used seconds later instead of just ignoring it because it can't be done right at the second I hit the button. It's not a huge problem, but annoying enough that I thought I should mention it. Another thing that was thankfully fixed in later games is the dodge, specifically the direction in which you can do it. In this game, you can only dodge in 4 directions: forward, backward, and side to side. Not being able to roll forward and just a little to the side makes it so much harder to close the gap and get in a more advantageous position at the same time. And the 4-way rolling has also led to me tumbling straight to my death. But you have to take the bad with the good. This game wouldn't be what it is without the rolling. It might be annoying, yes, but dying is a big part of the game. You drop your souls, which function as experience and money, and humanity, which can be used to kindle the bonfires, getting more uses of your healing potion, or Estus flask, keeping you alive longer. Better equipment can also help stave off death, so you bring Titanite back to the blacksmith to upgrade your weapons and armor, but sometimes you can't just drop everything and run back to Andre of Asura, no matter how alluring he may be. And that's why you can buy smithing boxes to do your own upgrading and repairs at any bonfire, but there are certain upgrade thresholds that you need a smith to do. Going from +5 to 6, you need a smith for that. Turning a +10 weapon into a boss weapon, you need the giant blacksmith in Anor Londo for that. Some great weapons can only be obtained by cutting the tails off of certain enemies. There are a lot of tails, and some of them are harder to reach than others, but it feels so good to cut that tail, even if you don't plan on using the weapon you get out of it, even if you can't use it. Dark Souls doesn't do that thing that other games do where it says, "No, you can't equip it, your level's too low, no." It still lets you try. The game handles weapons brilliantly, and the lore just as well. Instead of giving it to you outright, it's told through environmental storytelling and item descriptions. Take, for example, Havel the Rock. You find him locked in the basement of this watchtower, Hollow. The description of his ring tells us he once fought beside Lord Gwyn, and the key to the tower he's imprisoned in mentions a hero who was locked away by a dear friend for his own good. With that information, you could easily come to the conclusion that Gwyn locked him in the tower because he went hollow. But in Anor Londo, there's a room hidden behind an illusory wall. Inside, you find an occult weapon made for fighting gods, like Gwyn, among the rest of Havel's equipment. So maybe Havel was plotting against Gwyn, and that's why he was locked away. This raises the question, whose point of view are we getting from the description of the key? It could be Gwyn making stuff up, or maybe somebody else locked Havel in the tower to hide him from Gwyn. And what's more, the key is found on a dead blacksmith whose body is guarded by a moonlight butterfly, which was created by Seath the Scaleless. And now there's a thread tying him into all this. And that's just one example. There are people on YouTube who have built huge followings just talking about all the little clues the game gives you, connecting the dots and sharing their thoughts on the lore behind just about everything in these games. Doing that mental legwork to find out what happened before you showed up in the game can be just as much fun as actually playing it. Then of course there are characters who haven't met with tragedy just yet. Each one has their own mission, their own story, some that you love, and some that you love to hate. They have quest lines that you can actually help with, most of which end badly, but in one case you can actually save him. These characters also show up as summons to help with boss fights or invasions where they attack you, and if you're playing online, you can have other players doing the same thing. You can invade them or put down your summon sign.
And engage in jolly cooperation.
I don't have any footage of this because I never bought Dark Souls Remastered and nobody else was playing Prepare to Die Edition in 2024. I heard a story once about how Miyazaki came up with the idea for this multiplayer system after a real-life experience, though I don't know if it's true or not, and I refuse to do the research because I'm lazy. One day, Miyazaki was driving through the snow. He came to a steep hill and nobody could get up. Then all the cars went bumper to bumper, pushing each other up the hill. Miyazaki couldn't get out to thank the person behind him without ruining the whole thing. He had no way of knowing who even helped him. It could be someone he knew, or a complete stranger, a man, or a woman, a friend, or an enemy. Like I said, I don't know if it's true, but I love the idea behind it, and if it is true, it contributed to a sort of multiplayer experience that I had never seen before. I could just go on and on about how well they handled the lore, or the gameplay mechanics, or the difficulty. But the way they sparingly use music really lets the atmosphere breathe. Most of the time, there is no music, only the sound of your footsteps, the enemies, and if you're wearing metal armor, the clatter of the steel plates with every step. They save the music for a select few areas, like the soothing safety of the Firelink Shrine. Or the vast expanse of the Ash Lake. And of course, the boss fights, with a daunting chorus as you battle gargoyles atop the cathedral. Or the more somber piano melody as you face the charred husk that was once the great Lord Gwyn. Of course, you probably won't have time to appreciate the music as you fight for your life against towering giants and freakish abominations of the abyss, but look up the soundtrack when you get the chance. When I took the time to actually listen to the music without any other distractions, it gave me goosebumps. As much as I love this game, as much as I have praised it, there are still some things that I can't help complain about. Every single late game area has some annoying gimmick. There's the catacombs, where skeletons don't stay dead unless you kill their necromancer or use a divine weapon, which I did because I was running a faith build, and that isn't so bad. Then there's the Tomb of the Giants, where it's pitch black, and trying to cheat and turn up the brightness doesn't work, but you find a skull lantern that lights the way and shows these glowing things on the walls that lead you to the end, making this area tolerable. Then there's New Londo Ruins. If you want to fight the ghosts here, you need to either get cursed, which kills you instantly and respawns you with your max health cut in half, or use a transient curse so you can temporarily fight them, and then, to fight the boss, you need to wear a certain ring to survive the abyss, which takes up one of your 2 ring slots because, as we all know, people only have 2 fingers after all. And one of those rings could be integral to your build. Then, this boss, the 4 Kings, certainly seems to spawn more than just 4 of them. In the Duke's archives, there's a fight you're supposed to lose, which isn't too bad. Then you escape from prison, which isn't too bad. Then there's the invisible walkways over a bottomless pit of death. And that leaves us with the Demon Ruins, There's a big ugly guy you can trick into jumping off a cliff, which cools lava and gives you a way to go, which is alright. Then after that, it feels like they just rushed through making this area. The enemies aren't placed like they normally are. It's like they just quickly plopped them down. And in Lost Islip, there's lava everywhere, but instead of finding a way to cool it and make a path, you get a ring. Now it doesn't kill you, and you can walk through all of these haphazardly placed dragon legs, and that's not even the worst part. If you've played this game and beaten it, you know exactly where I'm going with this. The boss of the area is supposed to be the best part. A fun, difficult challenge to tie everything up in a neat little bow. But here is the worst gimmick fight I have ever seen. You destroy these things on either side, but be careful, you don't want to die instantly from a hole in the floor. Then you go inside and kill the bug. I love Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 3, and Demon Souls, and Elden Ring, and Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 2, to a lesser extent. I like the challenge, even if it can piss me off sometimes, even if the late game areas leave something to be desired. Like in life, you have to take the bad with the good, and hope things get better as time goes on, which they did. In all the later games, everything I complained about was fixed, and I can't wait to see what FromSoft does next.